Another Somalian scam in Minnesota, but this couple got away with $7.2 million after going to court and being convicted. The judge overturned it. They had a home health care business for 2 years without a physical address, like without a building, but a P.O. box. They overcharged Medicaid, overbilled them, didn't have documentation for the services that they provided. All this was provided in the courtroom, and the judge said, nope, we're going to overturn the decision of the jury. So they got away with $7.2 million. Sarah West, the judge in Minnesota, Democratic judge in Minnesota, and then this is what the husband, I can't click out his first name right, but Youssef, last name. Yeah, crazy. So no accountability. You could go to Minnesota, scam millions of dollars, and you could get away with it. This is easier than robbing a bank. This is easier than robbing a bank, just falsifying a couple of documents, and there you go. You can have millions of dollars in Minnesota.
Want to know where your hard-working, bust-your-ass tax dollars are going? Here you go. You're going to love this one. Abatifata Yusuf, however you pronounce his name, is a Somalian immigrant, and he was found guilty of defrauding the Medicaid system $7.2 million. $7.2 million of our hardworking taxpayer dollars in a Medicaid fraud scheme where he was charging Medicaid for services he was not performing, taking the money and buying luxury items for he and his wife. The prosecution presented their case to the jury, and the jury deliberated for under 4 hours and found that the evidence presented in the case was overwhelming and handed down a guilty verdict. And then guess what happened next? So this judge right here, Sarah West, isn't she cute though? She's got that look. You know the one I'm talking about. Decided that the jury got it all wrong and relied too heavily on circumstantial evidence and took her own personal judgment and reversed the entire guilty verdict. I don't know about you, but after all the shit we've seen over the last 16 years, the corruption, the dirty deeds, the backroom deals, the absolute rogue spending on our taxpayer dollars, I gotta tell you, rogue corrupt judges was not on my bingo card. But here we are again and again and again over the last couple of years. So I don't know about you, but I'm about up to here with this shit. And when you go to work and you look at your pay stub at the end of the week and realize how much goddamn money they take from your blood, sweat, and tears, and realize that all this fraud fucking exists and then they get away with it, that's enough to piss anybody off.
A stunning decision by a Hennepin County judge throwing out a jury's guilty verdict in a $7.2 million home health care fraud case. Prosecutors say Abdi Fatah Yusuf and his wife ran Promise Health out of a mailbox in a building where several other home health care companies were supposedly located. They were accused of buying luxury items for themselves with the taxpayer money they allegedly stole, overbilling Medicaid and the PCA scam. Even though the jury swiftly convicted Yusuf, Judge Sarah West says there wasn't enough direct evidence that he knew fraud was occurring in his company. Jurors I talked to were surprised. Listen to this.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence that this case would be thrown out. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever.
The Attorney General has already appealed this decision. I'm Lou Bergoose. Follow for more news.
Family, a Somali couple have gotten away with 7.2 million of money that they have defrauded Medicaid. They were found guilty with the jury, but Judge Sarah West went on to overturn the jury decision, making them go away with more than $7.2 million, from Medicaid. Abdi Latifa Yusuf and the wife were convicted, but got away with it after a federal judge overturned it. Just imagine getting away with $7.2 million. This overturning from Judge Sarah West has come at a time where Donald Trump has decided that he'll be doing mass deportations for most Somalis living in Minnesota. Family, the Somali people have proven, that they are not law-abiding citizens, that most of them have been defrauding Medicaid for the longest time. The latest case being that of Abdi Latifa Yusuf, after the judge overturned the jury decision, even after finding a lot of evidence against them. Family, stick in this video as we dive deeper into this topic and debunk the reasons as to why these people ought to have been arrested, ought to have been convicted. Family, once the video is done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. And fam, in a special way, I'd like to thank my subscribers who are supporting this channel by buying me a coffee. I do not take your support for granted. Let's watch the video. Once it's done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch the video together, family.
The August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company, Promise Health, out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife, Lol Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam.
So they spent a lot of this money on luxury items like Gucci handbags and things like that. And now this judge literally overturned a jury's verdict. Have you ever heard of something so corrupt like that? Overturning a jury that, like the video said, swiftly convicted this man. And rightfully so. Clearly, we need to do a deeper investigation into this judge especially, because what would be the reason, the logical reason that she would overturn the jury's verdict? It could be either one or two things. I mean, this was an open and shut case. He was clearly frauding people, stealing taxpayer money. So either she's getting bribed or she has taken money from these Somalian people and groups that have been caught in a lot of other fraud as well and sending money to the Al-Shabaab terrorist group overseas. This is ridiculous. This is judicial terrorism. That's what it is. And so she needs to be impeached. We need to get the FBI involved, and we need to get rid of these corrupt judges. Legally, peacefully, but we need to impeach them. They can't get away with this stuff. They just can't. And so that's all the updates I have for you guys regarding this story. I'll have more for you soon, I'm sure. But as always, let me know in the comments what you think about this, and be sure to share this story.
He just found a Somali man guilty of stealing $7.2 million from taxpayers through fake Medicaid billing. That should have been the end of it, right? Wrong. A liberal Minnesota judge stepped in and completely overturned the verdict, acquitting him of all charges.
At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company, Promise Health, out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife, Lol Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
You think you're shocked? Listen to one of the jurors who actually decided this case.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
I'm watching this Minnesota story blow up because people are furious that a reported $7 million Medicaid fraud case ended up with a jury saying guilty and a judge stepping in and tossing the verdict. This kind of thing always lights up the internet because it feels like the system protects everybody except the taxpayers paying for all of it. So here's what's being said. Prosecutors showed what they described as a long pattern of fake billing. A jury heard it, they convicted fast. But then Judge Sarah West, who people online point out is a liberal in Minneapolis, said the evidence did not exclude other possible explanations, and she tossed the verdict. That move is legal under Minnesota rules, but it is super rare, and people are calling it a complete collapse of accountability. The reaction is is intense. Minnesotans are posting that they follow the rules, pay taxes, follow the law, while people tied to a massive fraud walk away without any consequences. Some say the judge went far beyond her job by replacing the jury's view with her own. Others say this is another example of blue state systems bending over backwards for the wrong people while ignoring the taxpayers who have to fund everything. Critics are also pointing out this came after years of major welfare fraud scandals in the state. They see a pattern. They say the leadership is failing and they're demanding federal review and real consequences. The Attorney General appealed the ruling, and that's part of why the story is spreading so fast. People want that appeal to stick. The bigger anger you're hearing is simple. If the legal system won't protect public money, and if juries can be overruled whenever a judge feels like it, people lose trust. They feel like the country is spinning into the same dysfunction you see in failed states. That's why this story is exploding, and that's why people are saying President Trump needs to bring federal pressure and restore some kind of order. Y'all like the video right there? Follow for more. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'll catch you on the next one.
Hold on to your turkey legs, because this week the news is absolutely wild. A liberal judge just overturned a unanimous jury verdict to save a Somali man who stole $7.2 million from the taxpayer. And you won't believe where that money was going. Meanwhile, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, he goes on live television and says, we can't incarcerate criminals because that's racist. Yeah, just days after a career criminal was freed and set a woman on fire. The judge behind it openly admits she judges cases based on skin color. Wait until you see this video. And since it's Thanksgiving week, well, I've got a bonus clip that's pure gold. President Trump serving up a platter of comedy so good, even the turkeys are.
Home healthcare company Promise Health out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home healthcare companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife, Lowell Ahmed, were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant, or PCA, scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
You think you're shocked? Listen to one of the jurors who actually decided this case.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
Tell me this ruling is not going to hold up. Now, the AG's office, they've already filed an appeal, which means the Minnesota Court of Appeals will review this, which could take months. And while that drags on, U.S. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, she's openly admitting her allegiance is not with the United States of America.
waan ahay gabar Mareykanka laga doortay oo Congress-ka Mareykanka ku jirto. Laakiin waxaan ahay gabar Soomaaliyeed, gabar idinku jinsi ah, gabar idinku af ah, gabar idinku diin ah, oo hadde qof iyadoo da'yar waddankeedii laga kaxeeyay wili xiise u qabto in maalin waddankeedii ay ku noolaato oo dadkeedii wax ay la wadaagto. Marka alxamdulillah waxaan rajaynayaa aniga iyo ilmahayga in aan hadde ku barbaariyo iyagana ilmahooda ay ku barbaariyaan dhulkii aniga aan ku soo koray. Taasna haddii ay suurtagelayso waa hadda shaqo badan inaan wada qabanaa hadduu Ilaahay yiraahdo.
I guarantee you she's the ringleader in a lot of this. I mean, she openly admits she doesn't see herself as American at all, but as Somali, and actually says she wants to move back home to raise her kids there. So tell me, how on earth are we letting someone who rejects America represent the very people?
Ladies and gentlemen, it happened again. Yet another instance of immigrant-perpetrated entitlement fraud has been discovered, this time to the tune of $7.2 million. And I'll tell you what, J.D. Vance is not happy about it. He has had enough. In fact, right this very moment, he's out here dropping bombshells. Now, as many of you might remember, in a video I made just a couple of days ago, we talked about how Somalian fraud rings in Minnesota have, over just the last 5 years alone, defrauded all of us federal taxpayers out of over $287 million in entitlement fraud. In fact, in an effort to steal federal funding, they've been lying about feeding starving children, they've been lying about treating children with autism, and what's more, much of that money that they've stolen from the federal government, or rather all of us federal taxpayers, they've actually sent back to Africa to fund various radical jihadi terror groups. And by the way, I'm not kidding, I wish I was. At this point, all of this is out in the open. But so like I said, it's actually happened again, this time to the tune of $7.2 million. However, what makes this instance of immigrant entitlement fraud perhaps even worse than the others is that this time, a radically progressive judge has actually overruled the guilty verdict of the jury and let the immigrant scammers off the hook. And you know what? If you don't believe me, take a look at this.
At the August trial for Abdi Fattah Yusuf, the jury heard evidence that he ran his home health care company Promise Health out of a mailbox at a Central Avenue address where multiple other home health care companies were supposedly located. Yusuf and his wife Lol Ahmed were charged with stealing $7.2 million of taxpayer money through Medicaid overbilling in a personal care assistant or PCA scam. The couple allegedly spent tens of thousands of the fraud money on luxury items for themselves. Despite the jury swiftly convicting Yusuf, Judge Sarah West last week decided they got it wrong.
It's reversing or overturning a jury's verdict.
Defense attorney Joe Tamburino, who's not affiliated with this case, reviewed the decision and analyzed it for KARE 11 News. He says Judge West ruled that the state's case relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and that she believed the state did not rule out other reasonable inferences.
That, in fact, there could have been other reasonable theories other than guilt in this case.
Yeah, like, maybe all of this really was just one massive misunderstanding. Spare me. But so just to be clear, the judge here, Judge Sarah West, knew that Abdi Fattah Yusuf and his wife Lol Ahmed ran a healthcare company out of their mailbox, taking in over $7.2 million worth of fraudulent Medicaid payments. The judge here also knew that Abdi Fattah Yusuf and his wife Lol Ahmed then spent all of that money on various luxury goods like designer purses and expensive cars. But you know what? There's actually some more to this. Take a look.
State Representative Kristen Robbins, chair of the House Fraud Prevention and State Oversight Committee, says she's now reviewing if any state laws need to be tightened.
We want to strengthen state law so that we can get prosecutions out of these cases, because clearly a jury thought he was guilty.
Jurors in the case can't believe the decision.
I am shocked. I'm shocked based off of all of the evidence that was presented to us and the obvious guilt that we saw based off of the said evidence. It was not a difficult decision whatsoever. The deliberation took probably 4 hours at most. Based off of the state's evidence that was presented, I was beyond a reasonable doubt.
Beyond a reasonable doubt. And by the way, did you catch that? The jury unanimously decided to convict these Somalian scammers after just 4 hours of deliberation. But so what did the judge do in spite of all of the evidence and the jury's determination? She overturned the jury's verdict, choosing to protect the Somalian scammers from receiving justice that really they have brought upon themselves. Folks, when we talk about anti-American judicial tyranny, this is exactly what we are talking about. But now, folks, like I said earlier, Vice President J.D. Vance actually chimed in on this entire situation, pretty much going scorched earth, and you know what? Rightfully so. Because I don't know about all of you, but I, for one, am getting sick and tired of this nation getting scammed and defrauded by refugees and immigrants that we have graciously allowed into our country. And so we're going to take a look at what J.D. Vance just had to say, but first, I do want to say real fast that if you folks enjoy the daily news updates, please consider subscribing to the channel because it really does help a ton. But okay, check this out. As Vice President Vance just posted on X, after 4 years of house prices doubling and in some areas tripling, many young people feel priced out of the American dream of homeownership. A welfare fraud scandal in Minnesota reveals that large numbers of new arrivals aren't assimilating and are funneling our tax dollars to literal terrorist groups. An innocent woman was set on fire in Chicago as the mayor resists federal law enforcement resources to bring peace to one of our great cities. The Obamacare insurance system is buckling under its own weight, and the country is currently $38 trillion in debt. Our administration is working hard on addressing all of these problems. But you know what really fires up the Beltway GOP? Not any of the above. Instead, the political class is really angry that the Trump administration may finally bring a 4-year conflict in Eastern Europe to a close. I'm not even talking about the substance of their views. Much of what these people have said about the Ukraine war has been proven wrong. But whatever, we can agree to disagree. But the level of passion over this one issue when our own country has serious problems is absolutely bonkers. It disgusts me. Show some passion for our own country. And so, ladies and gentlemen, how's that for a truth bomb? Everything he just said is not only absolutely true, but if we really want to actually save this republic, if we want to save the nation, we need to start focusing on all of these issues that he just spoke about. And you know what? Very clearly, Americans right now are resonating with J.D. Vance. In fact, take a look at this right here. Here's the most recent polling data from RCP, Real Clear Politics, comparing some of the nation's top politicians' favorability ratings versus their unfavorability ratings. Now, you'll notice that all of them are underwater to varying degrees, but trust me, that's actually kind of normal in polling like this. That said, what's perhaps the most intriguing thing about these numbers is that right now, according to the RCP averages, which perfectly predicted the outcome of the 2024 election point for point, by the way, J.D. Vance is actually the single most favorably viewed politician in the entire country right now. And so, folks, I'll tell you what, as far as I'm concerned, J.D. Vance is pretty much right on the money. Right now, we need to start focusing on domestic issues, improving the lives of everyday American citizens, and for the love of God, we need to actually start holding all of these criminal parasites accountable.
Abdilatif Yusuf and the wife could be the most happiest couple right now in America after successfully defrauding Medicaid more than $7.2 million. Family, this has come at a time where Donald Trump has also decided that he will push for the deportation of many Somalis because of these very same reasons. For the longest time, they've been defrauding, Medicaid over issues that are medical, Somalis are now begging for help, left, right, and center, asking people, especially black folks, to help them since they are being deported outside of America. It says that the Somali community has been falsely diagnosing children with autism to receive taxpayer handouts, taking advantage of the system. They channel the money back to their country. But family, the situation with Abdilatif Yusuf and the wife is different. For them, they had a home healthcare business for over 2 years without a physical address, without a building, but only a PO box. Family, just imagine how funny, I'd call it stupid, for a successful scheme, to be able to defraud Medicaid over $7 million. How these people have this scheme for more than 2 years without the government noticing. The very same people not having even a physical location. They went ahead to overcharge Medicaid. They've been overbilling Medicaid, without any documentation for their services, that they provide. And the judge, Sarah West, proceeded to overturn the decision of the jury who found them guilty because of overwhelming evidence in this case. But family, Abdilatif Yusuf and the wife went home, pocketed all these amount of money. It says that they've been shopping left, right, and center in America. They've been defrauding Medicaid, the America's taxpaying dollars for services they were not even providing, and taking the money and buying luxurious items for him and his wife. Family, just imagine they're buying the latest bags, the latest clothing in the market with Americans' hard and tax-paying money. Look at the situation right now in America. The cost of living is unbearable. Most Americans are struggling. Most Americans today didn't even get, their food stamps benefit for the month of November. Many Americans are going hungry in the month of November, while Abdi Latifa Yusuf and the wife were able to successfully defraud Medicaid more than $7.2 million. Just imagine how life can be. Just imagine how unfair life can be. This has made many Americans mad. This is the easiest form of robbery. They are not using any violence. They are not pointing pew-pews and entering, banks, telling everybody to lie down for them to be able to steal that, amount of money. They are doing it very, very easily. They must have gotten support from people working for Medicaid or people in the government for them to be able to successfully defraud the Medicaid system this whole time. You'd wonder, how did they, come up with this structure for them to be able to successfully defraud the government of the United States of America? They overcharged, they overbilled them without any forms of documentation. You'd wonder, how would that happen in this day and time? This is very, very sad. And in a special way, I just like to say shame on you and Judge Sarah West, because how would you overturn the jury's decision, and making these people free, even after defrauding America all that money in a very, very difficult time, something they've done for over 2 years. Family, the Somali community is slowly, destroying their name in the United States of America, because this couple right here have been found guilty by the jury. The evidence has been too much, but they're still out there free. They've been enjoying all these monies for all this time. Ilhan Omar, the representative, has been trying so hard to defend her people. She's been saying that the actions, of a few individuals wouldn't mean that is the behavior generally of Somali people living in America. But family, each and every day, while they continue to be exposed, it is making the lives of many Somalis living in America to be so difficult. Some people are being denaturalized their citizenship in America today because of these problems by other Somalis. Donald Trump the other day said that Somalis are reaping America a lot of money, saying that their country is full of crime rates. They do not help America in any way, but they get a lot from his country. And he's saying that Somalis will not be allowed to enter America. And most of them will be deported back to, Somali. We've seen some of them in Somali already after being deported, asking that black folks should help them in this difficult time. We are seeing them asking for help in a time where most of them are being pushed away from America. Somalis are also saying that they cannot be blamed for problems of a few individuals. But family, this situation is worsening each and every day as many more Somalis are being found, guilty in these very same reasons. Family, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this whole situation of Somalis being able to successfully defraud American government, for services they are not providing. In Minnesota, there should be a team that would now come up to investigate some of these healthcare providers, because how would you be able to successfully defraud Medicaid $7.2 million in a home healthcare business for 2 years without any physical address, without any building, but only a PO box? How do you even overcharge, overbill, without any documentation for the services you're providing? That just shows us how many more of the very, very same people like Abdi Latif Yusuf out there who are still defrauding America's government. Family, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this video. Do you think many Somalis are doing this, or is this just but a few of them who have been found doing the wrong things and scamming Americans out of their hard-earned, tax money that they pay the government of the day? Family, like the video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'd be very, very grateful. Lastly, I'd really appreciate if you all took your time to subscribe to the channel. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers, and fam, I'd really, really be appreciative if you all show this channel love. Thank you so, so much, and see you in our next episode. Goodbye for now.